The Square Ball Podcast.
Welcome to The West Stand. It's our show that debuted last season. You can find it normally on a Monday and Friday, fixtures depending, and you will find it on YouTube and in your podcast app as well, with guests welcomed from across the world of Leeds United. My name is Dan Moylan. Hello to you. With me is Michael Normanton.
All right.
I'm great because
Been a good week, hasn't it?
my data is secure online. That's the biggie.
That's the main concern of everyone this week, I think.
It is, very much so, yes. NordVPN bring you this show. You can watch sporting events, TV shows, movies, that sort of thing, that aren't available in your region by switching virtual location.
What sort of movies?
What? Good ones.
Good ones. Cool.
Yeah. I noticed Nord have partnered with some other people in this sphere. I think our deal is actually better, you know.
Than the Leeds United one.
I didn't want to mention them by name, but now you have done, yeah. Thanks. Thankfully, there's nobody shuffling over here uncomfortably in the corner.
It's fine, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. What, putting unsubstantiated claims out and just hoping that they're true? Yeah, probably fine. You can protect your private data, like your bank details if you're on public Wi-Fi networks, save money on flights, hotels, subscriptions from other countries at a cheaper price. Just protect your data while you're on the move. So if you're off on holiday, for example, and you don't want to be giving your data over to anybody, then get NordVPN active and you could be back in the UK whilst on holiday. Let's say if you want to tap into your streaming service to watch something on the telly box.
Wait, you could be on holiday whilst in the UK either.
Can you do that?
Don't know, probably.
Sounds like time travel to me. 10 devices at once, the fastest VPN in the world, and you will get all the details on the bonus offer, nordvpn.com/TSB, and the link will be in the episode description box. Totally risk-free, as Nord offers a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. nordvpn.com/TSB. Our guest today is Bryn from LUTV, which you can watch around the world at select times.
Yeah, probably. I don't know anymore. I mean, everything's changed, you know, Premier League and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell me.
You're just the monkey, not the organ grinder.
It would be nice to think people could watch it still all over the world, but I don't know how it works anymore.
Right.
Have you had a fun week as Leeds United's in-house commentator?
I think you know the answer to that question, don't you,
We always
Michael?
seem to catch you at these times, don't
It's
we?
funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dorigo comes in when everything's all hunky-dory, and then you come in when it's all gone to shit.
He took himself off to Italy for a romantic week in Rome. So, Tony, if you're listening, I hope you had a great time. He did do Arsenal, in fairness to him, but then he's had a few days to recover from that, whereas I was back at Hillsborough. So, in answer to your question, no, it has not been a great week.
Weird atmosphere, wasn't it? The other night.
Well, yeah, it was.
In a big empty stadium.
In a big old empty stadium with the only fans who are turning up are the ones who aren't, I guess, protesting against the ownership.
You can call them scabs, Bryn.
No, I wouldn't do that. Definitely wouldn't do that. Might need to get a job there one day. Yeah, so there was a weird atmosphere, given that you had probably as many, if not more, Leeds United fans in the ground than you did home fans. We couldn't see any of the home fans either because they were all down below us. So apart from rows sort of A and B, we couldn't see any Sheffield Wednesday supporters at all. But we heard the roar.
Yeah.
When they scored the goal. I mean, we had a few technical issues in the second half as well. So we'd actually lost connection. It was kind of one of those weird things that you can do nothing about. The line went, and then without anybody really doing anything other than unplugging it and plugging it back in again, it came back again.
It's the classic manoeuvre, isn't it? Turn it off, turn it on again.
Exactly. We did that twice, and it started working again, but nothing had really actually changed. But so in the midst of all this kerfuffle, Sheffield Wednesday scored. So not only when those who were following the game on LUTV, when we came back, we had to tell them, well, we had to apologise, first of all, for the kerfuffle, but then we also had to apologise that we brought them the news that Sheffield Wednesday were now 1 goal up.
Don't shoot the messenger and all that.
Yeah. So
you're not going to believe this.
Yeah.
Oh
God!
I'm going to tell you something. You're not going to like it.
I could have said nothing, couldn't I? And then we could have pretended that the Bogle goal was the winner, and then just not done the penalties.
That was bad, wasn't it? And yet felt very Leedsy. It felt very familiar, very like a slipping into a warm bath.
See, I'll be honest,
the toaster.
I did not see it coming.
Right.
I didn't see it coming when I looked at the team sheet.
No,
I couldn't see it coming when I looked at the team sheet. And given that Leeds had put out an expensively assembled side, albeit with a kind of a number of people in it who hadn't really had probably enough minutes, but that was the whole point of the exercise, wasn't it, to help on that in that process. but it was the youthful nature. The Sheffield Wednesday side was even more youthful than I'd kind of prepped for, because a couple of the players who played in the previous round against Bolton Wanderers didn't make it to that one. They'd had a couple of injuries since. So there were fewer first-team players in the team for the game against Leeds than there were for the game against Bolton. So that at that point you thought, I did actually have thoughts that Leeds were going to, that this was going to be a high-scoring victory.
I mean, it should have been by right, shouldn't it? You're not far off heading into a trialist territory there, are you?
Yeah,
when they're playing the younger kids than the kids.
So to put it into any kind of context, I mean, I was disappointed, genuine, because I thought there was a good opportunity to make progress. I'm all up for a cup run, me. There are less games in the Premier League than there are in the Championship for a start, which is kind of does impact on me a little. Mouths
to feed and all that.
Yeah, all those kinds of things, bills to pay. But this just seemed to set everything up quite well for a good cup run. And so there was a frustration there from the fans behind the goal, which I fully understand in terms of they went there to celebrate a victory, and some of them were leaving before the third penalty had even been taken. But I also had kind of a little bit of a vested interest to an extent as well in that extra games are good. And none of us got what we wanted. The only thing that puts into a little bit of context, it doesn't help, but puts into some context is I then watched the Grimsby-Manchester United game, and I thought there was quite a lot of parallels in terms of what I saw between the two fixtures. And what does that point to? Well, maybe it points to a kind of general, the mindset of the modern player at this level, this early in the season in particular, is fixated on playing in the Premier League, I think. And I'm not sure that, although we all talk up it'd be great to get to Wembley. We had Andy Cousins talking about Europe and all the rest of it in the build up to the game on Tuesday night. Cheers, Cuz. Then we are traditionally, our mind is set in that direction. We want to go, well, I fancy a bit of a cup run, a few extra games, a bit of glory, a bit of excitement. That would be good. But I'm not quite sure that the same mindset is there with the people who actually got the control over that.
I agree with you. I think by and large fans hate that idea as well, because there's an element of sort of basic respect for the shirt and the badge, because our attachment to the club is emotional, and we expect basic standards to be adhered to. I suppose when it's your week to week job, does that I suppose that falls away a little bit. But does that speak to a certain distraction? Does it border on arrogance? I'll put this to Michael rather than you, because I know you don't want to sit there and call the Leeds players arrogant.
Well, I wouldn't call them arrogant. I would kind of refute that suggestion. I think it's more pragmatic than that.
Right.
I think they're looking. Listen.
Is it like avoiding injuries? Do you mean, and things like that?
Yeah, I think it's. I need a few minutes. I need to make sure I'm fit for the weekend. I mean, it actually had the feel to an extent. We had this conversation at half time. It felt a bit like a pre-season friendly in terms of the relative quality of the two teams as well. As if you were playing one of those early pre-season games. Because you had a load of guys in, 9 changes from the Arsenal game and 5 in who hadn't started yet this season. My suspicion is that the players, everything that the players do and everything that they've talked about in the build-up to their arrival at the football club has been about the necessity to, or the benefits around being involved in a Premier League football club, Leeds United, and kind of every element in that, in the on a contractual basis, is really based around that concept about number of games, final league position, all those kinds of things. So in all the conversations, I suspect, before they arrive here, the one that, I don't know what the Carabao Cup bonus is, but lots of other things, I suspect, kind of take priority. I mean, we've heard it so many times, that bread and butter statement, the league is our bread and butter and all that bit. But I guess, as we all lean into the concept that the only thing that really matters is being in the Premier League, well, that's the consequence.
Yeah, I completely understand that and agree with you. But then you get to Daniel Farke's press conference ahead of this Newcastle game, which we'll come on to in due course. And then you learn that Noah Okafor has picked up a little bit of a niggle in that game. His groin's playing up a little bit, whatever. And you sigh and gaze at the heavens and think, well, if that was him not extending himself and he's still picked up an injury, then just whoop-de-doo, isn't that great?
I will say, just in relation
in
to
the
that,
middle of a transfer window, by the way.
in relation to that stuff as well, like you can say it's all focused upon the Premier League and the players want bonuses and stuff based on it. We were playing a load of children, and there's just, as far as I'm concerned, there is no excuse for that team to turn up in second, as Arsenal did with us, turn up in second gear and just wallop them.
It did look.
It should have been incredibly easy.
It did look to me. Do you agree, Michael? That it looked like a load of blokes, as Bryn was just sort of saying, like all sort of thrown together for the first time, and it didn't look cohesive, did it? And then the ones that were in there from the before times didn't pull up any trees anyway. So it just made this recipe for a completely under par performance. Because I mean, you were there. What did you think of it? What was the general mood in the away end?
Yeah, it started fairly relaxed. I think the game started as it probably came across with you watching it on TV. We weren't good at any point, but we had the ball for more or less the entire game.
We had 80% possession, didn't we, for that first half? And you're thinking,
like, it'll come. We will just score, and once we score one, we'll probably get 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they take the lead, and there was just a bit of shock, really. Everyone's like, how on earth is that? How? Well, but
yeah.
They've not had the ball. How are they in the lead?
It goes to show you, doesn't it, though, that like 0-0 in those circumstances, it's a really precarious scoreline because despite your dominance, all it takes is that one moment.
That's the point at which it felt Leedsy, because I've saying I didn't see it coming beforehand. Like, I have seen many a Leeds defeat to lower league opposition in the cup. Generally speaking, there's been a bit of me fearful of it going into it. Histon, for example, you did look at the pitch, you looked at the kind of circumstances of the game, and you went, oh, God,
everything felt off.
This might be a bit of trouble here. Whereas actually you looked at, and because Hillsborough's, the last time I was there, not been for a number of years, but the last time I was there was the Kirkland incident. And that was an absolutely poisonous atmosphere that night. It was really like a horrible, intense, kind of difficult position to play in. We drew that game as it turned out. There was none of that. There was no excuse for anybody the other night. It was a more or less behind closed doors as far as home fans were concerned. And so I'm not willing to make excuses for any of them for the other night.
What did Farkas say?
They were just all so far below par, and some of the performances from people like Aronson, for example, and Pirro, people who played a lot of games last year and who, I guess, you come up to the Premier League and you're not quite sure if they'll cut it, and then this is a game with them dropping back down to a level that is frankly a lot lower than the Championship and stinking the place out.
But then the difference makers came on late on and did make a difference, and it looked like we'd done
But why are Aronson and Pirro not difference makers against some Sheffield children?
Because they're just not. Because maybe they're just not good enough. What did Farkas say, Bryn?
Well, he was philosophical as per usual, because that's what we've said this before, but he's very good at maintaining the midline. He wasn't happy, but he's mindful, I think, of the fact that this is, it is genuinely one game in a long season, because he doesn't want it to have that. He did mention, if you watch the LUTV interview, I don't know whether he did it afterwards in the media, sort of general media huddle, but he did mention not looking at social media or reading the newspapers, which is quite an old-fashioned concept, but I know what he meant. So that kind of echoed the Amorim statement a couple of weeks previously with his players. So I think that probably more than anything signalled that the manager knew that there was something of a tide of negativity going to sweep in at that point. So
he's right to shut it out, isn't he? I mean, he did it last season when we were all losing our heads.
He has no choice. Yeah. He has no choice, and it doesn't play well always, but he has no choice. He has to make sure that the underlying job that he does with that post-match stuff is to just keep everything as much as possible on an even keel. And he did it successfully, and we discussed it last season. At difficult times, he did it well last season. So he's going to do it again. He's not going to change the way that he operates in these circumstances. It's going to be the same. The problem is it gets a little bit more difficult now. You back up a game last season. What was it? Away at Luton, what was the next up after that? Anyway, home win.
It was Luton when he said we would go up.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
And he was right.
Yeah. So and he said it's a good point. Everyone, no, it's not. But the next game after that was an eminently winnable game because it was a championship game, right? The next game after this one, this is where it gets tricky because this is Newcastle United at home, and this is far from an obviously winnable game. It's the complete opposite of that. So this is where it gets harder now because there's a froth going into this one off the back of the last two performances as well as results. I'll say that. And you don't know. You could be relatively certain of the outcome last season. I don't think we can be anywhere as clear cut on that basis.
It's that uncertainty that's fueling what Farke has described as us being one of the most emotional clubs in the whole of Europe. And as I touched on a little bit earlier on, we are now in the closing days of the transfer window. As I understand it, Facundo Buenanotte was supposed to be coming in from Brighton on loan. That has mysteriously disappeared into the ether, and a flight gets cancelled.
Stood us up, hasn't he?
Yeah, something's happened. So all these little bits of narrative as it progresses toward 2 defeats. We're coming towards the close of the window. Imagine what a defeat to Newcastle does at the weekend, but equally, a creditable draw or a really good win will frame things completely differently. The emotional barometer will swing wildly because we're so early in the season and we don't quite know how this is all going to pan out. It's that uncertainty again.
Oh, massively so. If Leeds were to beat Newcastle this weekend, 6 points on the board,
incredible return,
would be. How long did it take the teams last season to get even to that point? So. Yeah, we're at that stage. We're in the dip currently, and where we head next is anybody's guess. As I've sort of intimated, though, what is a bit more worrying this time is that actually, if Leeds were to lose at home to Newcastle, that is not a tremendous kind of shock or upset or anything, because I watched Newcastle the other night and they were very, very good against Liverpool, even with a player less for a lot of the game. So they're a good side. They're a very good side with some very good players. So the outcome is that in the same way that Leeds expected to win all their championship matches last season because they were playing lesser opposition, I would guess that that's Newcastle's mindset just going into this one as well.
I think the performance matters a lot against Newcastle. Result obviously is going to affect how people feel about it. But if we played well and came out, if it was, say, a bit like the Everton game, a fairly close run thing, and we end up on the wrong side of a 1-0 defeat or 2-1 or something, I think people will accept it. The way we didn't really lay a glove on Arsenal and then followed it up with Sheffield Wednesday, followed it up by the perception that we are sleeping on the last days of the transfer window, it is all snowballing into something of a disaster of a week. So
only in Leeds United world,
and yet it's all football fans feel like this, don't they? And yet it's instantly redeemable. If we win on Saturday,
always.
It's redeemable, and then you do the necessary business in the final 3 days of the window. The window closes Monday night, 7:00. There is time, but they need to pull their finger out, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, these things are not straightforward because you're not the only club out there trying to sign players, are you? And everybody is now beginning to reach that point. You've got clubs who started poorly. So I was having a chat with somebody at Leeds United a couple of days ago in the aftermath of the Arsenal game. And, they're kind of cognizant of the fact that the teams at the bottom, who are currently struggling in the Premier League, are going to be looking at this and thinking, actually, quickly, we need to get players in. So West Ham would be one of those teams. So extra players are very much in the market who may, if they'd had a good start, might have gone, actually, I think we're okay. I think we've got what we need here. But as soon as the pressure comes on, they go, right, we need to go out and sign people as well. So you'll see some of those who perhaps you weren't anticipating were going to be knocking around, shopping at a slightly higher level than Leeds because they've been there, or their Premier League background is longer than Leeds United's. So they have the potential to gazump Leeds on stuff because that's just the reality of the situation is that you're competing against people in a marketplace now who have more. And if you're all after the same players, and by and large everybody is after the same players, then that's when it becomes tricky.
It's a fairly small pool, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
it is. It is. And there are, with no secrets. I mean, you hark back to Rafinha's signing. I'm not saying he was a secret, but they did well to sort of steal him away when others, I don't know, faltered or hesitated or whatever. But there aren't many of those around. All the names are the same. So they're trying to get things done in a meaningful way that will impact positively, whilst being aware of the fact that there isn't an endless resource here.
I think there are a couple of problems, though, in terms of framing how the window has unfolded. First of all, you had Parag Marate saying that they've been planning for this for 6 months, which, I mean, I think we all know deep down as football fans that there are chaotic elements to the transfer window, particularly this late on. People will nip in, steal players from other teams, players will change their minds, whatever, and it's going to be a very, very quick-moving thing. The problem is that the two things kind of don't go together, do they, really? When someone says, yeah, we've been planning for this for 6 months, it suggests an element of control, of planning.
But you can plan as hard as you like, and if ultimately, when it comes to the bit where you sort of white to the eyes and sit down and talk about it, or somebody else arrives who you weren't anticipating, then I don't know how much planning can you actually really do.
I know
you can anticipate.
I'm not bemoaning what happens in the closing days of the window. What I'm saying is the reality of the closing of the window, the final days, is perhaps different to giving off the impression of control over the whole outcome, which is we've been planning for this for 6 months. We've been planning for this since we took over, and everything is being geared towards the moment when we get promoted. It's all about the Premier League and staying there. And actually, there's a feeling, I think, of fear, a suspicion that elements of it have got away from them. And this brings me on to the second point, actually, which was when you set the bar as high as Igor Paixão, and I think then comments were reflected about that in the media, like the club seemed happy to confirm that he was the target. People go, great, well, we're shopping in this particular, or we're fishing in this pond for players. And then that fell through, not entirely unexpectedly, given the quality of the player. He ended up going to a club that's got Champions League football in Marseille. So you go, okay, well, who's next? And then nothing. I mean, and that's not to do down any of the signings that Leeds have made.
He was the next.
Yeah, but then also there's the kind of, well, you've seen him in the preseason friendly and you've signed him on the back of that, which we know is not true. But these stories get simplified into what people can see in front of them. And Okafor does not come with the same reputation, I don't think. Obviously a good player, because you wouldn't be the backup to Rafa Leão without it, but he doesn't come with the same reputation.
Well, he hasn't played enough football
as Paixão, and well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's the injury records, and the same thing goes for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's obviously a very, very good striker on his day, but how often is his day? So I think that there's a lot of worry.
It wasn't Tuesday.
Well, there's a lot of worry in it. It feels like there's the sort of gambling and risk taking has been built into the players that they have got so far, and when you are talking about dropping 30-35 million on Paixão, and then none of the other fees seem to have matched that, it feels like, well, you had that as a target, him as a target, that was an idea, but then what sort of fills that void after that falls through? I think that's possibly where some of this anxiety is manifesting itself, because it feels like, despite Parag Marate's words, fans will see perhaps a lack of planning. I don't think there necessarily is a lack of planning. I think they've probably got different fluid strategies, and all that is coming into play. It's a very dynamic situation, but that's where the fear is coming from. That and defeats always do it, don't they? Well, are we doing enough? Have we put enough in place?
There should be underlying fear, because the step up to the Premier League, as the last 2 seasons have proved, is a monumentally big one nowadays. So there's nothing wrong with the underlying fear of that. With fear, I'm afraid, comes a reality, though. How do you bridge that gap? How far are you prepared to go financially to try and ensure that you get to the other side in fourth from bottom? And it has to be a number put on it, because there's no guarantee still. If you do it all, you spend 400 million that you stay up. There's probably a better chance that you do. That's how it usually works. But then there isn't 400 million to spend, is there? Because you've not been there long enough to establish that level of finance behind the club. The whole idea of being in the Premier League is you stay in it to then be in the position to do what Brighton can do now in terms of going out and shopping. But yeah,
But nobody wants to hear that, though, do they?
No, they don't.
Because that's the reality of it. And it's shit.
Yeah. And the whole... Well, everybody knew this, though. And weren't we talking about Championship to Premier League last season?
Doesn't mean we have to like it, though, bro.
I know, it doesn't. But it is... This is the situation that has been created around the game now, is that the fear is that this season for Leeds is like last season for Leicester or Southampton, or Ipswich. That it's awful, and it is actually. I'm here to try and lift people's spirits, but it's realistic.
You know what'll lift people's spirits?
Go on.
Some points.
Oh, well, that's it. That's what makes all the difference.
Points
right?
and players make prizes.
We're doing this. I mean, and I'm saying now, I say a point against Newcastle would be a fantastic point.
Mm-hmm.
And a point against Everton would have been a very good point because it's a point. It's a point on the board.
Yep.
You get one a game, you pretty much stay up. So that's the target. That's where you until you fall way behind that curve. Until that happens, then it's okay. Still, it is okay.
It has been quite a special week in terms of upsetting people because I think you've managed to tick a lot of different boxes with defeats, a lack of transfer business. Then there's the Tanaka and Ampadu injuries they both seem fairly non-specific at the moment, but they're two undoubted starters for us. Ampadu in particular seems to be someone we can't really play without. It feels like Farke's always tried his absolute best to get him in the team as quickly as possible. And then some people are annoyed that we've got rid of Ramazani. Some people are annoyed that we've released Pat Bamford. So it's not, I don't know, I feel like everyone's had at least one box.
I do wonder if we're too nice. It was one of my fears last year. And I thought like the recruitment going into this summer and going for, Big Bastards FC and having a little bit more metal in the squad was the way we were going to go. But we felt so passive against Arsenal. I think that was where that was the main root of my concern against Arsenal. I expected us to lose. Did I expect us to lose 5-0? Kind of hoped not, but it's always a possibility as a newly promoted team. We were just so passive and accepting of so much of it, though.
We didn't really lose 5-0.
We should have upset them.
Whilst ever attacking, did we, was the thing.
I would have liked to have seen Arteta, prowling up and down the touchline outside his technical area, getting really wound up by what we were doing, spoiling the game, going down, breaking it up, that kind of, and it just, none of it came to pass. And I think that was the biggest fear for me, both around Farke and the team with the Arsenal game. I want to see us be nasty.
Mm.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the point to that?
Staying up.
By making it difficult is the thing.
Yeah.
You stay in a game by keeping it at 1-0 going into the last 10 minutes.
It's an established blueprint, isn't it?
It is. Make the game as short as possible is essentially the way of. It's the same as teams did against us last year. Teams will time waste from the first minute and then delay everything as much as they can. They'll make subs. People will go down with cramp. There'll be fake head injuries. Now, it's completely tedious to watch.
Yep.
But it does show a level of street smart that maybe we...
Goodness me, the Marcelo Bielsa days seem ever further away, do they not?
But we're not outrunning and we're not outfighting everybody else in this division, are we? Like we did when we came up last time.
I suppose that's the thing you're saying about...
We're just in the pack.
We didn't attempt to lay a glove on Arsenal. They did, but we didn't attack them because we went 4-0 down against Arsenal under Bielsa. But we sort of
came back with a couple of goals.
We did that because we were exposing ourselves by actually attacking. We just sort of meekly conceded some weak set pieces and gave the ball away in cheap areas.
We were open without
slightly to counter some of this. I mean, what was the time of the first goal in the game? 30 minutes or so, can't remember.
I wasn't displeased with the opening
up
half.
Until that point, and it was tangible inside the stadium because that place is. I've been there. That's the 6th time I've been there with Leeds now. Same outcome every time. But that place is not a great atmosphere generator. The stadium is still pretty impressive, but it doesn't make for a good venue. They tried the thing with the ultras behind the goal and all the rest of it. And at half an hour, we were at that point where you were starting to hear player voices drifting across.
Was it lulling a bit?
Yes, definitely. So at half an hour, there was a real sense that the thing that they'd come here to try and do, they were currently achieving. The concern was what happens if and when a goal goes in.
It felt like a when to me, not an if.
Yeah,
I think that was the problem. I think personally watching it, I was like, it feels like what they'll just do is they'll just wait until one of their players, who are all better than ours, will just do a thing and it'll be Saka.
Well, you can't do that for the entire game. But the big disappointment was that the goal from the set piece, because even I'm not massive, as you know, on the old stats thing, but even I've got a stat in front of me that tells me that these are the best in the Premier League at scoring off corner kicks. So if I know it, then sure as heck everybody else knows it. And yet a goal got scored off a corner kick. And also there'd been recruitment on the basis that we need to be cognizant. I've used that word twice now, and I never use that word.
Good word.
Delete it. We need to be aware of the fact, that's better, that they're very good from corner kicks. And yet they scored from, well, not just the one as it turned out, but the two. And the guy who scored clearly couldn't believe his luck in terms of sticking the second one in, for sure. So that was a disappointment, because when you're into the Premier League and you're looking, right, all the marginals that we need to work on here that will make us a harder team to beat. That was that's on the list quite clearly. Scoring from set pieces and defending set pieces has to be on the list.
Yeah.
And they didn't score from a set piece, not that they had many, and they conceded 2. So that would be a concern, because that's one of the things that you've recruited for and surely prepared for as well. I mean, it shouldn't have been a penalty, by the way. Very little fuss made about that one, I thought, in the aftermath.
At that point,
I think there was a centre, but there shouldn't be a centre that.
But that's the Premier League. The dice are loaded. As much as people will hate to hear it, and you go, conspiracy theories about it, Arsenal get that penalty. I don't think we get that penalty.
Well, I think it's one that we probably don't. It's not probably given by the ref on the pitch, and it's not one that VAR would judge to be worthy of looking at again.
Yeah,
but it's also not. It probably wasn't one that VAR judged worthy of looking at again.
Yeah,
with it being given
in that kind of netherworld between the two decisions. Yeah, because the ref hasn't.
I think there was a bit of contact, but it was undoubtedly a dive. Would be my take on it. Like he's very much desperate to go down there. He feels the touch and goes down. The touch does not, under any circumstance, knock him down.
The problem is they're judging it on such a. I mean, we don't even need to retread this. God, I'm bored of it already. But it's based.
See what I've done here, by the way.
Well, this is why
technique.
the Premier League is eminently hateable. And I'm talking about the dice being loaded against you. Is like they're judging it based on the touch. As long as the touch exists, then it gets given. It's like, is this even competitive contact sport football? It's not, is it? It just makes it boring and dispiriting to think that you just do not get anything that goes for you like that. All right, I'm ignoring the whole Everton handball thing. As is my right.
I also thought that was a penalty, by the way.
It
Clear
was.
For me.
Cognizant, aware, conscious, apprised, abreast, sensible of, alive to, sensitive to, alert to, familiar with. Any of those if you want.
To get us out of the misery a little bit, I've thought about the last 2 seasons. At this point last year, we'd drawn with newly promoted Portsmouth on day one. We'd had an absolute spanking off Borough.
Yeah.
Rutter had gone.
3-game cycle.
We then went to West Brom and had that absolutely stinking, boring 0-0. Like nothing happened in that game, as I remember. The season before, we started with 2-2 against Cardiff, scraped past Shrewsbury in the Cup with a lot of fringe players looking quite terrible, and then we lost 1-0 at Birmingham.
Right, I absolutely, and I've made that point that this feels very like the start of last season, right, where we're at currently. There is a proviso, and that is that the next game isn't Sheffield Wednesday away, as it was in that circumstance last season.
Easy place to go.
Usually. And the next game is Newcastle, albeit at home, but the next game is Newcastle United. And that's, I think, realistically where things change a bit.
Right.
Because
with that in mind then, okay, 2 questions. First question is, what do we go with up front against Newcastle, or the general play? Do you learn perhaps from the error of the previous games? You put Metcha in, who's designed to hold it up for a slightly tweaked approach against Newcastle, or do you think he doubles down and sticks with Pirro up front because of Everton?
I'm going to put something out here now. Dominic Calvert-Lewin had good chances, very, very good chances on Tuesday night. But the one thing is that I would say, and this, I don't know, people will come back and laugh at me about this perhaps, but he was there in a position that position a striker should be in. And that is something that has been noticeably kind of missing from a lot of Leeds United's play. That ball in, there's a guy who knows where it's going, and he's there waiting for it.
All right. Do you risk him then, Bryn? Do you risk him? Give him an hour.
What I'm saying is that I think that is a possibility. I think that is a possibility.
And also, he needs to get fit at some point. So if you see him as your striker, play him, run him into the ground for 45 minutes.
You do have options. So he isn't alone in that role these days, as has been the case. Now Pat's gone, then that isn't the case now that you've only got one. You've got other options. So I think, and we'll see, but I think that's a possibility.
I agree. I do. I think that's the way to go. I wish, again, talking with the aid of hindsight, and I think I might have said it on the match ball, I wish we'd played a stronger team against Sheffield Wednesday, got it won, maybe tried to get out of sight and then take the players off and rotate the squad a little bit. But like you say, it's easy to say with hindsight, isn't it?
But it looked like a great opportunity to give the guys who needed a run. But at the end of the evening, I guess I'm guessing what the real frustration for the manager was that he didn't have any answers to any of the questions he might have been posing before it in terms of, right, what am I doing with my team on Saturday? I'm not sure how much he learned. So the Calvert-Lewin thing, maybe one of the little tiny things that he learned. The rest of it, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Bijol is the other one because he was clearly signed as a starting centre-back.
Centre-half.
And was he any good the other night? It's very hard to say because he wasn't really forced to do a great deal. So we were limited to mainly seeing him do a bit of playing out from the back, which I guess was mainly fine. But does he replace Strauch at this stage?
I think he may be operating as a defensive midfielder this weekend. It's a possibility.
Who's Strauch?
No, Bijol.
Bijol. Oh, interesting, yeah. Because he has played there.
He's played there quite a lot, as I understand it. And in the absence of Ethan Ampadu, the other option is Ilya Gruev, but that's a possibility.
So then you'd be looking at Stack and Longstaff as the midfield?
I think he'd be desperate to play, wouldn't he? Sean Longstaff. Possibly, yeah. What's the approach here? Is it?
What's the alternative?
Are we looking? Well, yeah. What's the alternative? Are we looking to do that thing with the big team? Is that the thing now? I mean, if you looked at the way Newcastle played the other night, and Arne Slot had made comment about it, didn't it? The approach was, I'm looking at, the long throw thing's a big thing now, isn't it? Even Ethan was chucking them in the other week. There's a bit of Pulis going on here again in terms of a fairly straightforward approach. So the goal, the equalising goal for Newcastle, the long through ball flicked on by Dan Burn and the guys running off him, worked a treat, but it's not what you're used to seeing. And so Arne Slot's comment was about, I think, the kind of, what did he say? I didn't see any football tonight. Was that something like that? So it might be, if Leeds look at that and think, well, if that's the approach, what do we do about Dan Burn? We put Longstaff on him, maybe. How do we counter what they do?
Yeah.
Rather than, are we going to do what we usually do?
I hadn't seen Slot's comments, actually. It's interesting because I watched that game and I thought it was a brilliant game.
It was a great game, yeah.
It felt like, I suppose maybe the reason I enjoyed it is because it felt like a sort of a 90s game.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what was said. It was like 1990s football.
Rather than much Man City just pass it sideways.
Yeah, and the number of fouls, there was a record number of fouls for I don't know, listen, I'm trying to remember. Record number of fouls for the first 30 minutes of a game in the Premier League, something along those lines. So it was a different looking, feeling game.
It felt really horrible and edgy, which I enjoyed a great deal. To the point where Gordon got sent off and you could literally watch him running around going, he's going to at least get booked here. Well, as soon as he gets near someone, he's definitely getting. But he's a red card. Well done.
Well, even the sending off was a pretty old school challenge, wasn't it? A rake down the back of the leg with proper stud marks,
which I cheered for all sorts of reasons. he's going to be out. He's going to be out.
Well, there was that element to it, wasn't it? And because you Bruno Guimaraes in the second half, you think he's definitely getting booked here. He is definitely getting another yellow card here.
Got away
even
with
at full time, you go on. He's right in the face of the referee, right? But no,
he was walking the line.
He was walking, and he managed to successfully kind of walk it right through and beyond the end of the game. But that's what we're doing now, isn't it? This is the world we now inhabit, where you're watching other games, kind of.
But it goes back to what we were saying about the Arsenal approach. If we'd done that to Arsenal, set of horrible bastards just mixing it up with them, that'd have been great. But I think I do wonder. I would have fear, I suppose.
So then
maybe Farke's too wedded to his style. I don't know.
But you've also got one of your top men suspended. Two others I would think at least missing with injury, because one of them's a concussion injury, isn't he? So he surely is out.
I think he's been made available, although I don't know if I know they followed the concussion protocols, but I know they're supposed to be out for 7 days, aren't they?
7 or 10 or whatever it is.
Shah, is it? Who was
Yeah. So that robust approach might have come. We'll see. The evidence will be there on the starting 11 on Saturday, but might have come at a cost in terms of what they put in. And what was the net outcome for Newcastle?
Well, I know it was, yeah.
No points.
It was fun though, wasn't it?
It was
fun for me as a neutral,
okay.
but you know what I mean. But there is putting yourself about a little bit, and then there's raking your studs down the calf of the opposition player. I'd probably say exercise just a little bit of more emotional control than that. But there's nothing wrong with spoiling it, as we were saying, making the game short, breaking it up,
or at least do it in a sly way. I mean, you could see Gordon's red card going a mile off.
Just be better at being horrible bastards.
When the ref saw Gordon charging around, he could probably have his cards out of his pocket before he got to anyone. It's like there's something coming here.
I mean, we're talking this morning, Friday lunchtime it is now, and the news has just broken of Jose Mourinho being sacked by Fenerbahce, and of course, all Leeds fans have gone, go get him. Well, not all Leeds fans, a section have gone, he would make us unrelegatable.
I dare say West Ham fans have said the same.
And but that's exactly the sort of approach that he would take, wouldn't it? Just make you a set of absolute horrible bastards.
Yeah. The other thing about that game the other night is I was watching it thinking, oh, great, all these players are going off injured, suspended, but they still look really good. Yeah. With 10 men on the pitch and multiple injuries, I was like, they still look loads better than us.
And that's the conundrum here, by the way, is that I mean, Newcastle, let's not forget, they are a top end club now. They're a different beast to when Leeds were last in the Premier League. Remember Leeds going there and winning and stuff like that.
That bloody John Joe Shelvey free kick.
That was a key moment. But the fact they were signing John Joe Shelvey at that point tells you that they are now in a different place. And you're playing against one of the top sides in Europe, and that's Newcastle United, who won their first cup in about 4 decades last season, because of all the things that they've been able to do over the last couple of years in terms of, I know they've had the restrictions, but in terms of recruitment and all the rest of it, just puts them in a different place.
Yeah.
Just check, John Joe Shelvey's on a free, by the way. Could do a lot worse.
He's still playing.
He was at Burnley last year, wasn't he? But
don't think he played much.
Not used particularly, was he?
It's good on a free kick.
And here's my one crumb of comfort in all this. It has been a really difficult week, and everybody does want the shiny new thing, the new attackers. My other question was actually going to be, do you think we've got enough up front? Not necessarily for this game, but just generally speaking, going forward. Answer that in a second. But I was just going to say, what the transfer window always distracts us from is realising how good our team can be on its day as well. It's still a good football team, as we showed against Everton.
And it was 9 other players in that Everton team, I think, when they had been promoted, basically. So there is another model here which says that do we give them how much leeway do they get do they get a go here still? And it could be that the team looks very, very similar to the one that started against Everton, kind of minus Ethan, because those players are known, whereas the others have got to kind of impress still. And that team got Leeds promoted in record-breaking manner. That group of players, so they were the manager could utterly rely on them last season. So does he feel the same way this time? And you bring in new stuff, like you said, shiny new players come in, but actually you shouldn't always lose sight. Unless you're absolutely convinced the group you've got is definitely not good enough, then okay, I get it. But yeah, there is an argument that says there's more to be wrung out of that previous team yet. And they might still have something to say about the fact lots of new players are arriving.
Do we have enough at the top end of the pitch?
It depends how good Calvert-Lewin is, largely, I would say, because a few years ago he was a great Premier League striker. You could be saying the same. Well, we did say the same about Pat Bamford. If we can get Bamford fit, maybe we'll stay up. Maybe he'll get back to getting 15 goals. Even 10 goals would be good. I mean, realistically, what do we expect from Calvert-Lewin this year? Would 10 goals be a decent return?
In my preseason, in my preseason predictions, I predicted him to be top scorer with 9.
Yeah, and I think that's what it'll take this year. I think we probably don't have anyone scoring 20 goals, but you hope you get.
But I think only 3 passed that threshold last year, so it's actually really hard to get 20 goals in the Premier League.
It's almost impossible now,
especially when you take penalties out of the equation as well.
Yeah, but you probably hope for 5 from Nonso, 5 from James. Yeah. 5 from Metcha, just spread it about.
But that's what needs to happen, isn't it? You basically, I know kind of people bash you with this stat about the goal equals a point thing, and it was Nick Harris, Sporting Intel, who basically said it roughly sort of correlates within about 10% that a goal will equate to a point when you work it out of the average of the division. Essentially, score goals to stay up.
So it's 40 goals to stay up, or 41, is it?
About that, yeah.
Yeah, so 38 points, 41 goals.
I mean, and it's not, it's not directly, it doesn't directly correlate. Of course it doesn't, because a goal does not equal a point. But you can see the underlying point, which is that you need to score enough to...
Well, I was looking down the list of like Everton top goal scorer of the last season. Nothing significant in that list. Looking down the Arsenal list, and there's no significant standout. It's just the goals are well spread around.
I will say we were relegated with 48 goals and 31 points.
Yeah,
just for a bit of context.
Well, how many did we concede though?
Well, yes, but it's not as straightforward as score some goals and you'll stay up.
No, not at all. But you need to score enough. You need to have enough threat at the top end of the pitch. Is the point I'm making, to win you enough games to stay up, which is probably where it does start to track a little bit, very loosely. But
well, if you're going to go behind in most games, or you're going to concede a goal in most games, that means you've got to be able to score 2 in most games at the same time. So if the two things, if there's a correlation between the two things, you do have to have, I think there will be a desire. I don't know what's going to happen. I have absolutely no insight as to what's going on in terms of recruitment or anything like that. But
your diary's empty, that's what you're saying.
Well, I keep it empty just on the off chance, but because nobody wants me for anything else. But I think there will be a desire to get some degree of... There is no certainty over this stuff, right? A guy comes in, you spend 30 million quid on him, he could be useless, but or he might not like the area, or he might not settle, whatever it might be. There is no real certainty. But I think there will be a desire to try and provide a bit more certainty in that sense, in terms of goals being scored. So it isn't currently there. You've got 2 or 3 who might work, but I think there'd still be a desire to get beyond the might to should, at least, at the very least.
Just to go on the goals and points thing, what's quite interesting is the area where it tracks most closely. I mean, Liverpool got 86 goals, got 84 points. Man City 72, 71. The area where it's most pertinent and obvious in last year's Premier League is mid-table downwards, the exact area of the table we are aiming for. Fulham scored 54 points. Palace scored 51, got 53. Everton underperformed it slightly, but had a decent-ish defensive record. They scored 42, got 48. West Ham 46.
People are screaming at you now.
What I'm saying is there is, you can see that if you score goals, you will give yourself a better chance of staying up. Or you've got to 1-0 everything, haven't you? That's about the size of it,
and that's unlikely, isn't it? Because of all the things we've just been talking about.
You will finish with a negative goal difference. So what you've got to do is make sure you score enough. Yeah. So for all you've got big bastards at the back, you still need enough in attack.
And which is again where the set piece thing comes into it, because you don't want to concede, but equally, if you've got in a tight game the ability to do something that just lifts it, because you've got 5 guys who are all really good when you put the ball in the penalty area. The one thing I'm still looking for is who's the person who puts the ball in the penalty area for those big moments.
Gus Harmer.
It could be.
Well, could be.
To me, that is still there's still a, because Stach, I'm thinking surely he's one of the big guys who should be in the middle waiting for this.
Taking them, isn't
not taking them. So you're missing the opportunity to utilise his ability in the penalty area by having him on set pieces.
Doesn't that seem like a really fairly obvious thing though? Like, I mean, you could have Jack, I suppose, patting his head with Brendy,
whispering to each other.
Well, they've tried 4 different, at least to my recollection, 4 different set piece takers already thus far. And we've seen it through pre-season, but we've seen it even in the last 3 games. So I think there is still for me, there's a gap there. I mean, Joe Rothwell's contribution to the club last season was, there were lots of things, but one thing that was most significant was his ability to take a really good set piece. And you saw it in key games, the 2 balls in for Strauch against Sunderland, for instance. He had, and Sheffield United as well the next game, he had the ability to deliver the type of ball that your big guys and all the rest of it surely require. So it's all very well having them in the middle, but you need the person who can put it into them as well.
Let's just do that a bit more, shall we? Let's just score off some crosses and things.
Yeah, well, it's kind of there'll be a stat for it somewhere. There always is, isn't there? But it's kind of crucial. I think the higher you go, the more important it gets. The harder games get, the more important that element gets.
Marginal gains and all that.
Yeah.
Marginal gains.
I mean, if we're going to talk marginal gains as well, Elland Road should help us. Like Elland Road on Saturday, a late kickoff, I think, is actually going to generate quite a good atmosphere for reasons. It can give us an extra little bit of an edge if it's used properly.
Yep.
Now the downside is if we go behind early and it starts becoming.
But I don't think that. I don't. That could be an upside still, because Leeds has a fan base that still is going to be invested in seeing the side get back into the game. It's not going to go. Well, is it? It's down to you, this fellas, but it's not going to go horribly quiet if Leeds go a goal behind. Surely, you're going to be come on, we can get back into this. That's been that's the switch at Elland Road. Even in games last season, like again, I go back to the Sunderland game. It wasn't the end of the night when Leeds United went behind, because there's always a sense that even going into the last 10 or 15 minutes, this team can turn it because it's here. Because it's Elland Road.
I think as well, we have to remember that Elland Road is not Twitter and it's not Wacko. It's a different beast, and you get dragged along by the atmosphere that's in there. You have to remember that, like, Twitter and forums they're places where people externalize this anxiety, whereas actually you're winging a prayer it a little bit more in Elland Road, don't you? You just get into the whole atmosphere and the whole occasion, and
to a large extent, you can put logic aside while you're in there. You can go, look, I know.
Well, so you should.
I know X, Y, and Z, but we're here now.
Well,
let's just hope.
As Sheffield Wednesday proved, if you are still in a game, despite being completely on the back foot, there's a chance.
Yeah.
There's always a chance.
And they did what they did through nothing other than pretty good organisation and kind of blood, sweat and tears. They threw themselves in front of everything. They kept closing down, even at the point where seasoned pros were thinking, well, they're going to lose concentration here, or ex-pros, should I say. They're going to lose focus here, and they didn't. They just kept at it. They kept at it. And yeah, there is a lesson there.
We've failed to blame the Welshman as well.
Right.
Of course, because it was his fault we lost against Sheffield Wednesday ultimately, wasn't it?
Which Welshman?
The goalkeeper. The sort of Welshman. He's a new Welshman, isn't he? You're gonna disown him after that.
Well, he's Welsh 2.0.
No. I mean, it took him a while to come to his senses, but no, I'm not going to. No, we've had too many goalkeeping mishaps to discuss between these four walls over the last year or so.
It's funny, isn't it, how that such an egregious error is kind of just been forgotten, because the rest of it, it's just Leeds being Leeds as the overall. The overall story goes. Was going to say, before we finish, just quickly a word on Pat Bamford, because we mentioned him in passing there about, being up at the front end and number 9s and all that. He's said farewell. The club have mutually agreed to terminate his contract. There's obviously a little bit of unhappiness there. You can tell from his words. He did a goodbye video that he put out on his socials. It said with the passage of time, he'll be able to look back on it probably as a really fond time in his life. And I think that mirrors, and we've said this before on the show, haven't we, Michael, that that mirrors how Pat will be remembered, I think, by the fans, in that he even acknowledged the frustrating aspects of his game in the goodbye statement. Frustrating elements. You wanted him to score more. I'm sure he wanted to score more. His value never higher than when he was out of the team, funnily enough, when you could see the things that were missing, the things that he did, the running that he did, the pressing that he did. But he was part of something, wasn't he? He was part of something really good twice.
Yeah.
Albeit a probably diminished part in the second promotion, but to be part of that Bielsa side, to get us up, to win the league, and then to score those goals in the Premier League, as frustrating as the injuries were, he was a part of something that we look back on fondly, and in years to come, I think he'll be held almost universally in high regard like that.
Given me some of the best moments. I mean, the goal away at Peterborough in the FA Cup is probably the best goal that I've commentated on in this LUTV period, if you like. As an individual's goal. The hat-trick away at Aston Villa in the Premier League was as good a hat-trick as you will ever see. And that general contribution through the Premier League, I mean, I don't know whether it was a factor or not, I've heard it cited, but through that season, that was his standout season, wasn't it, in terms of his quality and his contribution. That Premier League season, I think, was when it all really came together. The season prior to that, I came into this one where it felt a bit like he was always up against it. I've seen it with other strikers at Leeds as well in the past. And the sort of opinion wavered quite dramatically off the back of one game or another. But at the point at which the injuries began to bite, then it just got really, really difficult, because he was in that position and the type of game he played that he just couldn't get enough time in the team to be anywhere close to getting back to where he'd been in that halcyon period, particularly, I think, in the Premier League, that first Premier League season.
Take him at Wrexham?
I think not, because they've actually invested pretty heavily in that particular area of the pitch and in players who same kind of age, similar age range. So I would think probably not.
I wish him really well. I do wish him well. And I look at him. I suppose one of the great things that Bielsa taught us was a very human approach, wasn't it? In the way that he made the players pick up the litter to understand what it is to be a fan. That feels like a very, very human approach to football. And I think it started to flow back in the other direction as well, because we sort of universally love that promotion team, because it felt very connected.
Well, if you
to
think
the fan base.
Pat Bamford has on his CV stints under Sean Dyche and then under Marcelo Bielsa, and I know anecdotally stories people have told me you could not have a more different experience from Pat's, I think, personal perspective in terms of what he was dealing with in those two places. Because Pat's background is different to most other footballers.
Mm-hmm.
The Bamford name gives you a clue of that. There are different elements. I remember joking with him. We did a Zoom type interview during that lockdown period just before the players came back again. And he said that he'd been training at home, and I made some sort of quip about, you could run up and down the drive, couldn't you, for a bit of training, something along those lines. And he did laugh, to be fair, because he knew that was all part of the. There was that for a while. There was that social media account that had him, the parody account, which had him whipping the top off champagne bottles with swords and stuff, wasn't there? So it was all part of something a bit different. He was perceived as being something a bit different. Certainly was even within the game. I know from other pros I've spoken to. So he dealt with all that really, really well, because there was a suspicion that he was fragile because of where he'd come from, if you like. And yet he ended up scoring 17, was it, Premier League goals that season, and getting his England cap as well. So despite all the kind of stuff he'd been up against, he came through.
I relate to his humanity, I suppose, which sounds quite airy-fairy and deep and meaningful. But I do. I can see the human being there, and he seems quite sensitive and thoughtful, is what I mean. And that's partly why I want to think well of him, regardless of him annoying the shit out of me sometimes when he missed, a glaring chance. But you remember, it's only football, and there is a human being underneath that.
I feel like we'll do our own full tribute show to Pat at some point, because it's probably worthy of a full episode, isn't it? Going through the good and the bad, the ups and the downs, because there was a strange Leeds career, I would say.
Right. Well, Bryn, I'm going to ask you to sum up now in the finest traditions of a journalist and reporter, we've crossed the Bryn Law from just over the road from Elland Road. How would you sum things up right now as we end the show? And what is the general mood like?
Typically Leeds is how I would sum it all up. Here we go again. Magnificent. That's how I'd sum it up. It's just, there was a little bit of a sigh at full time on Tuesday, more than a little bit of a sigh at full time, because desperately disappointed but there was also, I think it was one of my co-commentators, I had two on Tuesday. One of them said, it'll be going mad out there now. And I know what he meant. Yeah. And so that's where we are. Listen, it's Leeds United.
We go again.
Always.
Cheers, Bryn. Right, we'll catch up again soon when, fingers crossed, we've got some more points on the board and it can be a little bit happier and more positive. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
The Square Ball Podcast.